Bikers trash old woman's garden, not knowing who she was once. The roar of motorcycle engines shattered the tranquility of Maple Lane, a quiet suburban street lined with tidy houses and well-manicured lawns. The Hellbound Legion, a notorious biker gang, thundered through the neighborhood, their chrome-plated bikes gleaming in the afternoon sun. Led by their fearless leader, Razor, the gang reveled in their reputation as the most feared group in town. As they approached the end of the street, Razor's eyes landed on a small community garden, its colorful flowers and lush vegetables a stark contrast to the gang's leather-clad appearance. With a wicked grin, he signaled to his fellow bikers, and they screeched to a halt in front of the garden. Well, what do we have here?" Razor sneered as he dismounted his bike. "Looks like someone's been playing in the dirt." The gang members laughed as they followed their leader into the garden, trampling the delicate plants beneath their heavy boots. They tore through the neat rows of vegetables, uprooting tomato plants and snapping the stems of sunflowers. In a matter of minutes, the once thriving garden was reduced to a chaotic mess of broken stems and scattered petals. Amidst the destruction, an elderly woman emerged from her nearby house, her eyes widening at the sight of the devastation. Glory Dell, the garden's caretaker, stood frozen in shock as the bikers continued their rampage. "Hey, Grandma!" Razor called out, his voice dripping with disdain. "Looks like you've got some cleaning up to do." The gang roared with laughter as they remounted their bikes and sped off, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a heartbroken Glory. As she surveyed the ruins of her beloved garden, tears streamed down her weathered face. But beneath the sorrow, a spark of determination ignited in her eyes. The Hellbound Legion had no idea who they had just crossed, and they were about to learn that appearances can be deceiving. News of the garden's destruction spread quickly through the tight-knit community. Neighbors gathered around Glory, offering their condolences and support. Many had enjoyed the fruits of her labor, as she often shared the garden's bounty with those in need. As Glory listened to their kind words, her mind drifted to a time long past, when she had faced far greater challenges than a ruined garden. Decades ago, Glory had been one of the most brilliant military strategists in the country, known for her quick wit and unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. Though she had left that life behind, seeking peace in the quiet suburbs, Glory's strategic mind had never ceased to work. She had poured her energy into nurturing the community garden, seeing it as a way to bring people together and foster a sense of unity. Now, as she stood amidst the wreckage of her hard work, Glory knew that she could not let this injustice stand. The Hellbound Legion had not only attacked her garden but had also threatened the very fabric of the community she held dear. With a steely determination, Glory began to formulate a plan. She knew that confronting the gang directly would only lead to more violence and destruction. Instead, she would need to outsmart them, to show them that their actions had consequences and that the community would not be intimidated. As the neighbors dispersed, Glory retreated to her home, her mind already working through the intricate details of her strategy. She pulled out an old notebook, its pages filled with faded military diagrams and cryptic notes. With a steady hand, she began to sketch out her plan, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. The Hellbound Legion had underestimated her, seeing only a frail old woman where a formidable force lay hidden. They would soon learn that Glory Dell was not one to be trifled with, and that the seeds of change she had planted would grow into something far more powerful than they could ever imagine. As the sun rose over Maple Lane the following morning, Glory set her plan into motion. She began by reaching out to her extensive network of contacts, built over a lifetime of service and strategic alliances. Among them was Marcus Winters, a former protege who had risen through the ranks to become a high-ranking official in the city government. "Marcus, it's Glory," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "I need your help." Without hesitation, Marcus pledged his support. He had always admired Glory's unwavering commitment to justice and knew that if she was calling upon him, the situation was grave. Glory then turned her attention to the community itself. She organized a meeting at the local community center, inviting everyone who had been affected by the Hellbound Legion's reign of terror. As the residents filed in, Glory stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding respect and attention. "My friends," she began, her voice carrying a quiet authority. "We have all suffered at the hands of the Hellbound Legion. They have destroyed our property, threatened our safety, and sought to divide us through fear and intimidation. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, as heads nodded in solidarity. But we will not be broken, Glory continued. We are stronger than they know, and we will not allow them to shatter the bonds that hold our community together. As she spoke, Glory revealed her plan, a multifaceted approach that would involve not only the authorities but also the collective efforts of the entire neighborhood. She outlined strategies for improving security, fostering communication, and presenting a united front against the gang's aggression. The community listened intently, their initial despair giving way to a renewed sense of hope and determination. Under Glory's guidance, they began to organize, assigning tasks and roles to each member based on their strengths and resources. As the meeting drew to a close, the once fractured community stood united, ready to face the challenges ahead. With Glory at the helm, they knew that they could weather any storm and emerge stronger than ever before. While the community mobilized, Glory focused on gathering intelligence on the Hellbound Legion. She knew that to effectively counter their actions, she needed a deeper understanding of their motivations, their hierarchy, and their weaknesses. Drawing upon her military background, Glory began to construct a detailed profile of the gang, piecing together information from various sources. She studied their patterns of behavior, their preferred targets, and the areas they frequented most often. As she delved deeper into her investigation, Glory made a startling discovery. Many of the gang members, including their leader, Razor, came from troubled backgrounds. They had grown up in broken homes, faced poverty and abuse, and had turned to the gang as a means of survival and belonging. This revelation gave Glory pause. While she did not condone their actions, she began to see the gang members in a new light, not as mindless criminals, but as lost souls in need of guidance and redemption. Armed with this knowledge, Glory began to formulate a new approach. Rather than seeking to crush the gang through force alone, she would aim to dismantle their power structure from within, by offering an alternative path to those who were willing to change. She reached out to local organizations that specialized in rehabilitation and support services, enlisting their help in creating programs tailored to the unique needs of the gang members. These programs would offer education, job training, and counseling, providing a way out for those who wanted to leave the criminal lifestyle behind. As the first phase of her plan took shape, Glory knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging. Changing hearts and minds was never an easy task, but she believed that with patience, compassion, and unwavering determination, even the most hardened individuals could be reached. The stage was set for a confrontation between the Hellbound Legion and the community they had terrorized for so long. But this time, under Glory's leadership, the outcome would be different. This time, hope would triumph over fear, and the seeds of change would take root. As the community's efforts to counter the Hellbound Legion's influence gained momentum, tensions began to rise. The gang, unaccustomed to facing resistance, grew increasingly agitated and unpredictable. One evening, as Glory walked home from a meeting with local volunteers, she found herself face to face with Razor and a handful of his most loyal followers. They had been lying in wait, eager to confront the woman who had dared to challenge their authority. "Well, if it isn't the little old lady who thinks she can take on the Hellbound Legion," Razor sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. Glory stood her ground, her posture straight and her gaze unwavering. "I don't think I know," she replied calmly. "And I'm not alone. The entire community stands with me." Razor scoffed, stepping closer to Glory in an attempt to intimidate her. "You think a bunch of scared little people can stop us? We own this town, Grandma." But Glory did not flinch. Instead, she met Razor's gaze with a steely determination that seemed to catch him off guard. "You may have ruled through fear and violence in the past," she said, her voice steady and clear, "but those days are coming to an end. We are no longer afraid of you." For a moment, Razor seemed taken aback by her defiance. He glanced at his fellow gang members, who shifted uncomfortably under Glory's unwavering stare. "This isn't over," Razor growled as he turned to leave. "You've just made things worse for yourself and your little community." As the gang members retreated, Glory let out a slow breath. She knew that this confrontation was only the beginning. The Hellbound Legion would not give up their power easily, and she would need to be prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. But for the first time in a long time, Glory felt a sense of hope. The community had rallied behind her, showing a strength and unity that she had not seen in years. Together, they would weather this storm and emerge stronger than ever before. In the days that followed the confrontation with Razor, the community's resolve only grew stronger. Neighbors who had once been strangers began to look out for one another, sharing information and resources in an effort to keep each other safe. Glory, meanwhile, continued to work tirelessly behind the scenes. She met with local law enforcement, providing them with the intelligence she had gathered on the Hellbound Legion's activities. She also reached out to other communities that had faced similar challenges, seeking advice and support. One afternoon, as Glory was tending to the remains of her garden, a young man approached her hesitantly. He introduced himself as Levi, a former member of the Hellbound Legion who had recently left the gang. "I heard about what you're doing," Levi said, his eyes downcast. "I want to help." Glory studied him carefully, taking in the sincerity in his voice and the determination in his eyes. She knew that the decision to leave the gang could not have been an easy one, and she respected his courage in coming forward. "We could certainly use your help, Levi," Glory said, offering him a warm smile. "But I want to make sure you understand the risks. The gang won't take kindly to your defection." Levi nodded, his jaw set. "I know. But I can't keep living like this. I want to make things right." Over the next few weeks, Levi proved to be an invaluable asset to the community's efforts. He provided insider knowledge of the gang's operations and helped to identify key weaknesses in their structure. But Levi's defection did not go unnoticed by the Hellbound Legion. As word of his betrayal spread, the gang's anger and frustration reached a boiling point. One night, as Levi walked home from a meeting with Glory and other community leaders, he was ambushed by a group of his former fellow gang members. They attacked him viciously, leaving him battered and bruised on the sidewalk. The incident sent shockwaves through the community and served as a stark reminder of the dangers they still faced. But it also strengthened their resolve to keep fighting, no matter the cost. As Levi recovered from his injuries, the community rallied around him. Neighbors brought him meals, offered words of encouragement, and even took turns keeping watch outside his home to ensure his safety. Glory, too, spent long hours by Levi's bedside, offering him counsel and support. She knew that the attack had taken a heavy toll on him, not just physically but emotionally as well. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," Levi confessed one evening, his voice trembling. "I'm afraid they'll come after me again, or worse, they'll go after the people I care about." Glory took his hand in hers, her grip firm and reassuring. "I won't lie to you, Levi. The road ahead won't be easy. But you have to remember that you're not alone. The community stands with you, and together, we're stronger than the Hellbound Legion could ever be." As the days passed, Glory and the community continued to press forward with their efforts. They organized neighborhood watch groups, established safe havens for those who felt threatened, and worked to build bridges with other communities facing similar challenges. One particularly inspiring moment came when a group of local children approached Glory with a handmade banner. "We stand with you, Miss Glory," they said, their voices filled with determination. "We want to help make our neighborhood safe again." Glory felt a swell of pride as she looked at the children's earnest faces. They represented the future of the community, and their willingness to take a stand gave her hope for a brighter tomorrow. But even as the community made progress, the Hellbound Legion refused to back down. They continued to lash out, vandalizing property and threatening those who dared to stand against them. It was clear that the final confrontation was fast approaching, and Glory knew that she would need to be ready. She began to lay the groundwork for a bold new strategy, one that would not only neutralize the gang's power but also offer a path to redemption for those who were willing to change. Glory's plan hinged on a daring gambit, a face-to-face meeting with Razor, the leader of the Hellbound Legion. She knew that convincing him to stand down would be no easy task, but she believed that it was the only way to truly end the gang's reign of terror. With the help of Marcus Winters and other influential allies, Glory arranged for the meeting to take place on neutral ground, with assurances that both sides would come unarmed and willing to talk. As the appointed day arrived, Glory made her way to the designated meeting spot, a small park on the outskirts of town. She arrived early, taking a moment to gather her thoughts and steady her nerves. When Razor appeared, flanked by his most trusted lieutenants, Glory stood to greet him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," she said, her voice calm and measured. Razor eyed her warily, his posture tense and guarded. "I'm here, but I ain't making any promises," he growled. Over the next few hours, Glory and Razor engaged in a tense but frank discussion. Glory laid out the consequences of the gang's actions, not just for the community but for the gang members themselves. "You've built your power on fear and intimidation," she said, looking Razor in the eye. "But that kind of power is fleeting. Sooner or later, people will stop being afraid, and when that happens, you'll have nothing left." Razor bristled at her words, but Glory could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. She pressed on, painting a picture of a different future, one where the gang members could use their skills and influence for good, building up the community rather than tearing it down. As the meeting drew to a close, Razor made no promises, but Glory could sense that her words had struck a chord. She knew that change would not come overnight, but she had planted a seed, and with time and care, it would grow. Leaving the park, Glory felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she knew that she had taken an important first step towards a brighter future for all. In the weeks that followed the meeting with Razor, the community began to notice subtle changes in the Hellbound Legion's behavior. While they still maintained a presence in the neighborhood, their acts of aggression and intimidation seemed to be less frequent and less severe. Glory, however, knew that the gang's power structure would not crumble overnight. She continued to work tirelessly, reaching out to individual gang members and offering them a way out, just as she had with Levi. One such member was a young woman named Tasha. She had joined the gang as a teenager, seeking protection and a sense of belonging in a world that had offered her little of either. When Glory first approached her, Tasha was wary and defensive. But as they talked, Glory began to see the glimmer of potential that lay beneath Tasha's tough exterior. "You have a choice, Tasha," Glory said, her voice gentle but firm. "You can continue down this path, letting the gang define who you are and what you can become. Or you can choose a different way, one that allows you to use your talents and your strength to make a real difference in the world." Tasha listened, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and longing. In the end, she made the courageous decision to leave the gang, even though she knew it would not be easy. As more and more gang members began to follow Tasha's example, the Hellbound Legion's power began to wane. Razor, sensing the shift in the wind, grew increasingly desperate and erratic in his attempts to maintain control. Glory knew that this was a critical moment. She redoubled her efforts, working around the clock to provide support and resources to those who had chosen to leave the gang. She helped them find jobs, access education, and rebuild their lives in a way that was meaningful and fulfilling. As the community watched the transformation taking place before their eyes, they began to see the gang members in a new light. No longer were they faceless threats, but rather individuals with their own stories, their own struggles, and their own potential for change. One particularly poignant moment came when Tasha, who had once been one of the gang's most feared enforcers, stood up at a community meeting to share her story. "I thought the gang was the only family I had," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But now I see that I have a bigger family, one that includes all of you. I want to thank Miss Glory for showing me that I had a choice, and for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself." As the room erupted in applause, Glory felt a surge of pride and gratitude. She knew that the journey was far from over, but she could see the seeds of hope taking root and flourishing in the hearts of those around her. With each passing day, the Hellbound Legion's grip on the neighborhood weakened, and the community grew stronger and more united. And at the center of it all was Glory Dell, the quiet force of nature who had shown them the power of compassion, resilience, and the unshakable belief that every person, no matter their past, had the potential for greatness. As the Hellbound Legion's influence continued to diminish, Glory turned her attention to the future. She knew that true change would require more than just neutralizing the gang's power, it would require building something new and lasting in its place. Working closely with community leaders and local organizations, Glory began to develop a comprehensive plan for revitalizing the neighborhood. At the heart of the plan was the idea of creating opportunities for education, for employment, for personal growth and development. One of the key initiatives was the establishment of a community center, a place where people of all ages and backgrounds could come together to learn, to create, and to support one another. Glory envisioned the center as a hub of activity, a place where the seeds of change could take root and flourish. As the plans for the community center took shape, Glory reached out to some of the former gang members who had chosen to leave the Hellbound Legion. She invited them to be a part of the process, to help design and build the center in a way that would reflect the needs and aspirations of the community. To her delight, many of them eagerly accepted the invitation. They saw it as a chance to give back, to make amends for the harm they had caused and to be a part of something positive and meaningful. As the community center began to take shape, the neighborhood buzzed with excitement and anticipation. People who had once been divided by fear and mistrust now came together with a common purpose, united in their desire to create a better future for themselves and their children. For Glory, it was a moment of profound satisfaction and joy. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be setbacks and challenges along the way. But she also knew that the community had the strength, the resilience, and the determination to overcome any obstacle that lay in their path. And so, with hope in her heart and a spring in her step, Glory Dell led the way forward, toward a brighter tomorrow. The grand opening of the community center was a day of celebration and triumph for the entire neighborhood. People from all walks of life came together to marvel at what they had accomplished, to share in the joy and the sense of pride that permeated the air. As Glory stood on the stage, looking out at the sea of smiling faces before her, she felt a lump form in her throat. She had always believed in the power of community, in the idea that people were stronger together than they could ever be apart. But to see that belief made manifest, to witness the transformation that had taken place in such a short time, was a moment of profound beauty and grace. In her speech, Glory spoke of the challenges they had faced, of the darkness and the fear that had once threatened to consume them. But she also spoke of the light that had emerged from that darkness, of the courage and the compassion that had allowed them to overcome even the greatest of odds. She paid tribute to the former gang members who had chosen a different path, who had worked tirelessly to build the community center and to create a new future for themselves and their neighbors. She spoke of the power of second chances, of the idea that every person, no matter their past, had the capacity for change and growth. As the crowd erupted in applause, Glory felt a sense of deep gratitude wash over her. She knew that the journey was far from over, that there would be new challenges and new obstacles to face in the days and years ahead. But she also knew that they would face those challenges together, as a community united in purpose and in spirit. And as she stepped down from the stage, Glory felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Razor, the once feared leader of the Hellbound Legion, standing before her with tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. "Thank you for believing in us, even when we didn't believe in ourselves." Glory smiled, her own eyes glistening with tears. "We all did this together," she said softly. "And together, there's nothing we can't accomplish." In the months that followed the opening of the community center, the neighborhood underwent a remarkable transformation. The once neglected streets began to buzz with activity, as people of all ages came together to learn, to create, and to grow. The center became a hub of innovation and inspiration, a place where ideas were born and nurtured into fruition. There were classes in everything from computer programming to urban gardening, workshops on conflict resolution and community organizing, and programs designed to help people start their own businesses and pursue their dreams. Glory watched with pride as the seeds she had planted began to take root and flourish. She saw former gang members working side by side with community elders, teaching and learning from one another in a spirit of mutual respect and understanding. She saw children who had once been afraid to leave their homes and now running and playing in the streets, their laughter ringing out like music in the air. But perhaps the most remarkable change of all was the one that took place within the hearts and minds of the people themselves. Where once there had been fear and mistrust, now there was a sense of unity and purpose, a belief in the power of community and the potential for change. Glory knew that this was only the beginning, that there was still much work to be done. But she also knew that they had laid the foundation for something truly extraordinary, something that would endure long after she was gone. One evening, as she sat in her garden, surrounded by the flowers and vegetables she had lovingly tended, Glory received a visitor. It was Marcus Winters, her former protege and now a key ally in the fight for change. "You've done something remarkable here, Glory," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You've shown us all what's possible when we come together, when we believe in ourselves and in each other." Glory smiled, her eyes twinkling with the wisdom of a life well lived. "We've only just begun, Marcus," she said softly. "There's still so much more to do, so many more lives to touch and transform. But I have faith in this community, in the power of love and compassion to heal even the deepest wounds." As the years passed, the community center became a beacon of hope and inspiration, not just for the neighborhood, but for the entire city. Its success drew the attention of local and national media, and soon, people from all over the country were coming to learn from the remarkable transformation that had taken place. Glory, now well into her 80s, remained a guiding force and a beloved figure in the community. She continued to work tirelessly, mentoring young leaders and advocating for change at every level of society. One day, as she was tending to her garden, Glory received a surprise visitor. It was Tasha, the former gang member who had once been one of her most promising protégés. "Miss Glory," Tasha said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done for me and for this community. I don't know where I would be without you." Glory took Tasha's hand in her own, her grip still strong and steady after all these years. "You did this, Tasha," she said softly. "You and all the others who chose to believe in yourselves, who had the courage to change and to grow. I may have helped to guide you along the way, but the power was always within you." Tasha nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know that now," she said. "And I want to make sure that others know it too. I want to carry on your legacy, Miss Glory, to keep fighting for what's right and good in this world." Glory felt a swell of pride and love in her heart. She knew that her work was not finished, that there would always be new challenges and new obstacles to face. But she also knew that she had planted the seeds of change, that she had nurtured a new generation of leaders who would carry on the fight long after she was gone. And so, with a smile on her face and hope in her heart, Glory Dell looked to the future, knowing that the legacy she had built would endure, a testament to the power of love, compassion, and the unshakable belief in the potential for greatness that lies within us all. Years turned into decades, and the community center continued to thrive, adapting and evolving to meet the changing needs of the neighborhood and the world beyond. The seeds that Glory had planted had taken root and grown into a mighty oak, its branches reaching out to shelter and inspire generations to come. Glory herself remained a constant presence, even as her physical strength began to wane. She could often be found sitting in her garden, surrounded by the flowers and vegetables she had tended for so many years, sharing her wisdom and her love with all who came to seek her counsel. One warm summer evening, as the sun began to set over the horizon, Glory closed her eyes and took her last breath. She passed away peacefully, surrounded by the community she had loved and served for so many years. The news of her passing spread quickly, and soon, people from all over the city and beyond came to pay their respects. They came from all walks of life, young and old, rich and poor, united in their grief and their gratitude for the remarkable woman who had touched so many lives. At the funeral, Tasha stood up to deliver the eulogy. She spoke of Glory's unwavering commitment to justice, her boundless compassion, and her unshakable faith in the power of community. "Miss Glory taught us that every person has the potential for greatness," Tasha said, her voice strong and clear. "She showed us that change is possible, that we have the power to shape our own destinies and to create a better world for ourselves and for generations to come." As the community gathered to lay Glory to rest, they knew that her legacy would live on, not just in the community center that bore her name, but in the hearts and minds of all those who had been touched by her wisdom and her love. And so, as the sun set on that final day, the community of Maple Lane looked to the future with hope and determination, knowing that they had been blessed to have known and loved Glory Dell, and that her spirit would continue to guide them, now and always.